11:47 p.m. That hour usually means sleep, or for someone like me, a quiet moment to triple-check a flight itinerary before the chaos of holiday travel. I was in my apartment in Norfolk, Virginia, my standard-issue duffel bag open on the bed, half filled with civilian clothes I rarely wore. I was a Navy intelligence officer, trained to anticipate threats, read patterns, and neutralize risks. But the threat that night didn't come from a foreign adversary. It came from a phone notification. It buzzed once, sharp and intrusive in the silence of my living room. A text from my mother, Elaine Carter. I picked it up, expecting a last-minute request. Pick up wine, bring the good desserts, don't wear that stiff jacket. Instead, I read the words that quietly detonated everything. The winter benefit is for our private donors this year. You don't really fit the aesthetic. It's best if you stay in Virginia. I stared at the screen. The blue glow washed over my hands, making them look pale, almost unreal. Don't fit the aesthetic. It wasn't advice, it was a directive, an eviction from Christmas. Seconds later, another notification appeared. My brother, Lucas. A photo dropped into the family group chat. Carter Family Benefit Prep. A selfie of him in a tailored suit holding a glass of bourbon, smiling like he'd already won. And beneath my mother's message, a small heart icon appeared. Lucas had liked it. He had watched me get cut out, and he had approved. Panic is a civilian reaction. I didn't have the luxury of it. I didn't throw the phone. My pulse didn't spike. In my line of work, you assess the intel, confirm the source, and determine response options. I looked at my packed bag. Then I looked at the rain streaking down the window. They thought this text would break me, that I'd apologize for being too rigid, too military, too much. But they forgot who they were texting. I wasn't just their daughter anymore. I was a strategist, and they had just transmitted the clearest signal I'd ever received. I typed one word back. Understood. I placed the phone face down on the nightstand. I walked to the duffel bag, zipped it shut, and slid it into the closet. I wasn't going home for Christmas, but I wasn't staying here either, because while they were focused on aesthetics, I was about to focus on assets. I sat in the quiet of my apartment. The only sound was the low hum of the HVAC system pushing warm air against the December chill. I unpacked slowly, deliberately, folding clothes I wouldn't need, setting aside gifts that would never be given. This wasn't the first time I'd been pushed to the edges of the family, but it was the first time they'd closed the door completely. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the empty bag. Why didn't I feel shocked? Why wasn't I crying? Because this text wasn't an exception. It was the conclusion of a 31-year conditioning process. In intelligence work, we study how people are shaped. It's never sudden. It's gradual. A slow erosion masked as concern. Criticism diluted with praise, just enough to keep you compliant. They call it the boiling frog principle. Drop a frog into boiling water, it jumps out, but place it in cool water and slowly raise the temperature, and it stays until it's too late. My father, Richard Carter, perfected the slow boil. I remembered being 24, fresh out of advanced training, proud of my commission. I'd come home for a visit, wearing my uniform. Richard had looked me over, frowned slightly, and said, "It's a little intense, isn't it? Lucas is starting a lifestyle brand. That's exciting." Lucas's brand was a premium athleisure concept that never launched, but Richard invested $60,000 into it anyway. I invested my time, my health, and my loyalty into service, and I received feedback on my appearance. That was the temperature rising. Then there was the money. There was always money. Not money they gave me, money I provided. I was the dependable one, stable income, perfect credit. My mind returned to 7 years earlier. I'd been home on leave, exhausted from a rotation overseas. Richard had called me into his office, poured a drink I didn't ask for, and sighed like the weight of the world sat on his shoulders. "We have a chance to refinance the mountain house in West Virginia," he said, sliding papers across the desk. "Rates are low, but because of some temporary cash flow issues with Lucas's venture, my ratios are tight. I need a cosigner, just a formality for the family legacy." The phrase landed exactly where it was meant to. The loan was for $200,000, a massive obligation for someone my age, but for the first time, my father wasn't disappointed in me. He needed me. I wanted that feeling. I wanted to belong, so I didn't question the heat. I signed my name, Amelia Carter. I thought I was buying respect, securing my seat at the table. Sitting there now in the dim light of my apartment, I understood the truth. I wasn't part of the legacy. I was the safeguard, the risk buffer, the silent structure holding everything up while they enjoyed the view. And now that I no longer fit the image they wanted to project, they thought they could erase me. I stood and walked to my desk. I opened my laptop. The glow of the screen reflected back a face that wasn't hurt anymore. It was focused. They assumed the text was the end of the conversation, that I'd disappear quietly like I always had. They forgot one thing. When you sign a contract, you inherit rights. I wasn't going to grieve an invitation. I was going to read exactly what I had agreed to 7 years ago, and I had a feeling that formality was about to change everything. My father hadn't just needed my credit score, he'd needed insulation from his own recklessness, and in his arrogance, assuming I'd never read the fine print or never have the nerve to enforce it, he'd signed away his authority. I opened a new tab and typed Mountain Crest Resort, West Virginia into the search bar. The results loaded instantly. My jaw tightened. It wasn't just a house, it was a business. There it was on Airbnb, VRBO, and multiple luxury rental platforms. Mountain Crest. Private alpine luxury. The photos were polished, staged, professionally shot. The description promised an exclusive escape for executive offsites, donor weekends, and private celebrations. The nightly rate was $2,300. The calendar was fully booked. They weren't struggling, they were thriving. Tens of thousands of dollars a month flowing through a property tied directly to my financial liability. I scrolled through the reviews. Incredible venue for our corporate retreat. Richard was a phenomenal host. The winter benefit weekend was unforgettable. They had monetized my risk, built their lifestyle on my name and my credit, and when I became inconvenient to the image they wanted to project, they tried to cut me loose. A cold, precise anger settled in my chest. This wasn't just a betrayal, this was exploitation. They were exposing me to catastrophic liability. One injury, one fire, one lawsuit. I'd be the one dragged into court. My clearance, my career, everything I'd built could disappear because they wanted to play rich. I picked up my phone and called a number I trusted. Evan, I said when he answered. Commander Hayes was a JAG officer I'd worked alongside years earlier. Smart, relentless, and he owed me a favor. It's late, he said. You okay? I need a hypothetical, I replied evenly. If a co-signer holds a controlling interest clause tied to unauthorized commercial use, how fast can control be enforced? He heard movement as he sat up. If the evidence is clean and the clause is valid, as fast as paperwork travels. I have the evidence, I said, staring at the listing, and I have the contract. A pause. Who are we talking about? My parents, I said, and I'll need a cease and desist drafted for a business called Mountain Crest Resort. Turns out I'm the controlling party. The call ended. I stood and opened the closet. I pulled the duffel bag back out. I wasn't staying in Virginia. I was heading to West Virginia. It was time to move. The mountains were stark under the winter sun when I arrived. I didn't drive toward the house. Not yet. I went straight to the county clerk's office. In my world, you never act without locking down the perimeter. The building smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant. My boots echoed against the tile floor as I approached the counter and requested the property records for 118 Ridge Hollow Road. The clerk handed me a thick folder without comment. I flipped past tax assessments and zoning maps until I found what I was looking for. Lucas had been bragging online about the new luxury cabins installed on the property. Heated micro-lodges tucked into the tree line. Structures like that require permits, especially in protected areas. I found them near the back of the file. Application for accessory dwelling units, 4 units, filed 6 months ago. Applicant, Richard Carter. But the authorization line required the property owner's consent. The signature froze me in place. Amelia Carter. It was my name, but it wasn't my handwriting. The curves were too loose, too decorative. I'd recognize it anywhere. My mother's. A chill ran through me. This wasn't just breach of contract. This was forgery. Federal forgery, and because I was an active duty intelligence officer, having my name attached to a fraudulent land use filing could trigger an investigation that would end my career. They hadn't just used my credit, they'd risked my freedom. I took a photo of the document, then I requested a certified copy. The clerk glanced at my face. Everything all right? No, I said calmly, but it will be. Outside, the air felt heavier. My phone buzzed. A notification from social media. Lucas had posted a story. Annual winter benefit. The Carters do it right. The video showed the house glowing against the darkening mountains, guests arriving in black tie, my father laughing near a fire pit, my mother holding court with a champagne flute. They were celebrating on borrowed time. I got in the car and checked the clock. 6:20 p.m. The event was in full swing. I didn't rush. I drove deliberately. I checked my reflection in the mirror. I wasn't wearing a gown. I was in a tailored blazer and dark slacks. Civilian armor. I turned onto the winding road leading up the mountain. The lights of the house cut through the trees, guiding me in. They wanted an image. They wanted a performance. I was about to shut down the stage, and I was about to pull the plug. "Amelia!" The voice was sharp, irritated. I turned to see Lucas cutting through the crowd toward me. He was wearing a velvet smoking jacket that looked like a costume, drink in hand, cheeks flushed. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, positioning himself between me and the room. "Mom said you weren't coming. You're killing the mood." "The mood?" I asked, looking at him. 32 years old, still playing pretend. "Is that what we're calling federal fraud now?" He scoffed. "You're being dramatic. Go home. You're embarrassing yourself." He reached for my arm, the way you move an inconvenience out of frame. I didn't react. I shifted sideways, a reflex drilled into muscle memory, and he grabbed nothing. He stumbled, bourbon spilling down his sleeve. I didn't slow down. I walked straight to the DJ booth. The music was loud, smooth jazz layered over pop. The DJ looked up, confused. "Cut it," I said. "What?" he yelled. I leaned past him and pulled the main output cable from the mixer. The music died with a sharp electronic snap. Silence fell hard. Conversation stopped. Glasses froze mid-air. Every face turned toward me. My father turned last. His smile collapsed the moment our eyes met. "Amelia," Richard said loudly, forcing confidence into his voice. "What is the meaning of this?" I stepped forward. I didn't shout. I projected. "The event is over. Everyone needs to leave. Now." The room didn't just go quiet, it went afraid. I knew that look, confusion tipping into self-preservation. "This is my house," my father barked. "You don't tell my guests to leave." "No," I said evenly, "it isn't." I set the folder down on the table. "This property is under active investigation for wire fraud, forgery, and unauthorized commercial use involving a commissioned intelligence officer. If you remain on the premises, you may be considered accessories. I suggest you exit immediately." Panic spread fast. One couple grabbed their coats, then another, then everyone. Status didn't matter anymore. Nobody wanted their name attached to a crime scene. Within minutes, the room emptied, heels and tuxes fleeing into the cold. Richard stormed toward me, face red, shaking. "You ungrateful child. You've ruined everything. Do you know who those people were?" "I don't care, and I'm not a child. I'm the owner." I opened the folder. Article 14, Section C. You converted the property into a commercial operation without my consent. That voided your authority. I slid out the second document. And this is a forged federal permit, 5 years minimum. My mother gasped. "We didn't mean any harm. We just needed things approved quickly. It was for the family." "For the money," I said. "You risked my career and my freedom so you could charge more per night. You didn't do it for me. You did it to me." Lucas stared between us, sober now. "Forgery?" I said. "She lied. About the paperwork, about tonight, about everything." I checked my watch. "You have 1 hour." "To do what?" my father whispered. "To vacate. Take your clothes, leave the furnishings. The business assets stay." My mother grabbed my sleeve. "It's Christmas. Think about our reputation." I looked at her hand, the same one that typed "I didn't fit the aesthetic," the same one that signed my name. I removed it gently. "You traded your daughter for an image. Now you have neither." I turned to the security guard. "Escort them in 60 minutes. If there's resistance, call the sheriff. The report's already filed." I walked out without looking back. 3 days later, the house was silent. The rented furniture was gone, sold to cover legal fees. The cabins were dismantled. My parents were staying in a roadside motel. Lucas had disappeared back into the city. I walked through the empty rooms, the echo clean, unburdened. I lit the fireplace and watched the flames take hold. I wasn't selling the place. I had a better use for it. A retreat, a refuge. No price tag, no image. Just a door that stayed open. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for an invitation. I held the keys. And if you're watching this right now, checking your phone, hoping for a message that never comes, stop waiting. Build your own table. Light your own fire. If this story stayed with you longer than the video itself, don't walk away. Subscribe. This channel is for people who actually feel what they hear. And if this reminded you of someone you love, share it with them and leave a comment below.